Over to you, Preet. Now, I've heard that as a race car driver, where you place your focus is where you will go. So, where should people be focusing right now, and how do they avoid crashing into the very ominous wall that we're being presented with?
Yeah, that's very true, actually, when it comes to driving in general. And, I get this sense that a lot of people have a focus where they're in a holding pattern right now and they're waiting for post-COVID life. They're waiting for normality to return. One of my friends, one of my best friends, we studied neuroscience together. He went on to become a psychiatrist, and we talked at length about the intersection of money and psychology. And he said to me, he said, Preet, there's no post-COVID. There's COVID crisis, and then there's COVID living. And he said, think about it, how the world adapts to these new normals. We take a look at, the HIV crisis, which started 40 years ago. Are we post-HIV? We're HIV living now, and it's probably going to be the same with COVID. It's going to change our society in a number of ways. But that being said, what that means, and what I've noticed, is that there are people who are focusing not on what they can do right now because they're waiting for that to happen. And we don't know when that's going to happen. And that uncertainty breeds anxiety. And that anxiety magnifies that present bias that we have. So when we look at the maximum amount of uncertainty or anxiety was right at the beginning, and you saw this hoarding behavior. People were hoarding toilet paper, people were hoarding pasta, because they revert to their more base instincts, those primal instincts. And it was about short-term survival, protecting myself, protecting my family. As we start to realize that we have to adapt to some new normal, whatever that is, the more we reduce the uncertainty, the less anxiety, the more we start to think about what are good financial behaviors to undertake. And so one of the things that I think people really need to do is create those short-term action plans. So if you've had an income shock, you have to take a look at your budget again and see what is the new income level I'm working with? What expenses do I have? What can be cut? What can be reduced? What can be eliminated temporarily, permanently? Figure out what that burn rate is. Take a look at what resources you have access to, be it emergency funds, income supports from the government, and what have you. Maybe it's low interest sources of credit. Figure out what your burn rate is, so that gives you some sense of certainty. It may not be good news, but it will reduce the anxiety, which will allow you to make better decisions, because we have a finite amount of decisional fortitude. The optimality of our choices gets worse the more we are bombarded with choices. And so one other thing that's stressing us out right now and taking that cognitive load is we don't have these demarcations of time like we used to before. It used to be you would get up, go to work, have your breaks, lunch, come home. The commute was a decompress, and then you were faced with all the stuff you had to deal with at home. But now everything's all blended together. And if you've noticed that you don't know what day of the week it is, it's because we don't have those signposts like we used to. Everything just mixes together, and it increases our cognitive load, which decreases the optimality of our choices.